Hey vegan cyclists, we're talking about the 3 principles, core principles to smarter training. I think we all would like to get more results out of our training. If we put in X, we would like to get out Y, and that Y be as efficient and as fruitful as we possibly can. But for most cyclists, especially when you're starting out, the idea is that if you don't come home utterly smashed, that somehow you're doing it wrong. That's not the case. So let's talk about the 3 core principles on how to train smarter. Okay, so here's the 3 principles, the 3 core principles. Now you can get way more complicated and you can break this down, and each one of these has way more things involved in it. But the core principles are going to be periodization or structure, data collection or some kind of training metrics so that you can gauge progression and where you are and where you have been and where you're going. And the third one would be discipline on how to actually listen to your metrics and listen to your program. So we're going to talk about these 3 things. We're going to go in depth on them. And honestly, if you apply these core principles to your program, your training, I guarantee you better results.
Nearly triple the amount, but you gotta call now.
It will feel easier, you'll get better results, and you won't have to ride as hard. Plus, you'll be able to project your fitness. So let's talk about that. Okay, so the first one is periodization or structure. Now, periodization is when you're going to have periods of training throughout the year. You're gonna break it up into blocks. Now, they can be as arcing of an overview of very simple, as in you have on season and off season. There's your 2 periods, on season and off season. But then we can break down into those seasons, on season and off season, and break those up into even better periodizations or better structured plans or blocks. Like right now, I'm sort of in my post race season. This is off season, okay? But I'm also in my fall in love with cycling again area, where I'm not really that focused on like intervals or really structured training. I just now I'm kind of like I'm getting actually a little bit back into structured training, but I am in the period of just dude, have fun, enjoy it, okay? But then what's gonna come, what I'm basically just started up actually this week, is now my off-season training program, which is gonna involve a lot of zone 1 to zone 3, more miles, not a whole lot of intensity if I can help it. Okay, but so in my off season, I'm probably gonna have 3 or 4 blocks, right? I'll have fun, then I'll have kind of just endurance, hanging out, building a base. Then I'll probably morph into building that base up a little more volume, going not much zone 1, more zone 2, zone 3 sustained, and then right before the on season, I'm gonna jump into a little bit higher intensity, start to get into zone 4, 20-minute efforts at zone 4, start to do a little threshold so that I work into, building up a peak fitness. Now my on season is probably gonna look something like this. There'll probably be about 2 to 3 months of volume decreasing and intensity increasing, building that up maybe towards a specific event. But I'm going to start with zone 4 stuff, put in as much hours as I can, but then slowly ramp it up to really high intense intervals with not so much duration to reduce the fatigue and increase my fitness to give me an overall better form. This is where a coach would come in and absolutely structure this for you, but you can do it yourself if you have the time. It's just a little hard to motivate yourself to do something you told yourself to do, right? But so build in periodization and structure throughout your year. The second item is measuring your efforts. This is data collection. And before you say, well, Eddie Merckx didn't have a power meter and blah, blah, blah. How did Eddie Merckx ever do anything without a power meter? Dude, power meters are the business, okay? They are the most important and greatest training tool you will ever have. And if you disagree, you just don't understand how to use power. You don't have to race to use power, okay? It's not only for racing. A lot of guys will never even look at their power meter in racing, but they absolutely look at it in training. And if you're just an endurance person, understanding your zones will help you tremendously enjoy the ride way better. It would be like getting in your car and driving and having no speedometer at all, no tachometer, and then you don't know how much gas is in the tank. You're gonna run out of gas. Eventually you're gonna go, it's just, listen, power meters are where it's at. If you don't have that, heart rate is then the next thing you need. But you need some kind of data collection to be able to show the progression of your training program, to understand what zones your structure is calling for. This is gonna trim all the fat off of your program. This is gonna allow you to stay in the zones that you want to be in and make the adaptations for those areas. So for instance, yesterday, my program called for steady zone 2. That's it. Go out for an hour and a half and just ride zone 2. If I don't have a power meter and I don't have a heart rate, I have no clue what zone 2 is. I can go off feel, but 100% guaranteed I will be either too low or too high, mostly, usually, too high. And so then I'm doing zone 3. I might even be hitting zone 4 in some of those, in that ride. If you are paying attention, like I actually stared at my heart rate because I was on my mountain bike, so I didn't have power. I just stared at my heart rate, kept it at zone 2. When I got home, I felt so fresh. I was like, man, I'm almost kind of bored, you know? Like I don't feel smashed. And that's great. That's a good thing, to not completely destroy yourself on every single ride. A power meter is gonna be the best absolute training metric and data collection tool because it's instantaneous. There's no variables like your temperature or like fatigue will reduce your heart rate. Time, you know, if you're going just strictly off heart rate, it's gonna take a while for your heart rate to get up and to come down. Either way, heart rate or power, you're gonna need to incorporate these in your programs and you're gonna need to understand them. And it might take you a year. It might take you a year to really figure out what your zones mean to you, but you've got to have something to keep you on track. If you spend all the time to break up your year and your training program into structure and periodization, and you have a day that says, dude, look, you've been smashing all week, you need to go out and do zone 1 or zone 2. Or you've got a race coming up and you want to make sure that you're not burning matches before that race. If you have no data, you have no idea what you're doing out on the road. And again, the thing is, well, tons of cyclists have been fantastic without any training metrics, and I get it. Right now, if you go to any average like Cat 5 race, those dudes are fast, okay? Like beginners are amazingly good. The quality and the pool of talent now, because of structured training and through science and understanding how to train, has made everyone super good. Chris Froome is super talented, okay? Without a power meter, without heart rate, without anything, he's still gonna be awesome. But he embraces those tools a lot, and he maximizes his ability to perform and to understand where he is. When his freshness, fitness, form, all that come together, when he knows that he's gonna peak, it's because he stayed on his program. The training metrics are also gonna allow you to gauge if your program's working or not. You could also say, you know what, around May, April, May, man, my power is really through the roof. It does well. I'm gonna target races and during that period. Then you can structure your training to know that's kind of like your natural peak. But so let's move on to the third thing, and that's discipline. And I know this sounds goofy, but man, it takes discipline to stick to this program. It takes discipline to look at your metrics and not ignore them. I fall for this all the time. My coach puts in, you know, zone 1 to zone 3, avoid every other zone. Do not do any hard efforts. And then what do? I jump on a Zwift race. And I'm just like, you know? And I was like, don't do that. Don't do that. You can't just go out and ride hard all the time. The saying is that most people ride too hard on their easy days and too easy on their hard days. And what that comes from is that when you're riding hard all the time, you're building a level of fatigue that is going to prevent you from reaching the adaptation levels, right? So say you need to overreach. You need to hit some new, you know, zones of power that you've never hit before. If you're fatigued from a long week of just drilling yourself into the ground, you might not even be able to reach those levels. It just might be unobtainable for your body to do. So when you have structure and you know what week you're in, you know what plan you're in, it's like, okay, this week is recovery week. I'm not to leave zone 3, all right? And then you have your heart rate or your power meter, and you can stare at that and go, okay, I'm not leaving zone 3. I'm gonna stick around zone 1 or 2. After that recovery week, your body will have recovered. Your fitness will have remained high. And so then your form will have increased. The other part about discipline is sticking to your program when you go out on group rides. If you go out on a group ride and guys are just hammering all the time, man, that's fun sometimes, for sure. Don't get me wrong, I love to do that. But you gotta sometimes just be like, you know what, I'm not gonna go to that group ride because I know it's gonna be a hammer fest, and I'm gonna just try to stick to my program. Have the discipline to know what your power, know what your heart rate, know what your data shows, and have the discipline to stick to the structure that you've made for yourself, even if that is just on season and off season, right? On season, drill it, okay? Off season, man, take it easy. Don't race all the time. Don't go, you don't even have to be racing, but don't just always drill yourself into oblivion every time you ride. And using these 3 principles absolutely will allow you to have a better result, easier training, okay? Think about it in when you're not going super hard, it should feel really easy. But when you're going really hard, it should feel like death, right? And so a lot of us end up falling into this like zone 3 abyss where we are always going too hard but not hard enough. So in overview, periodization or structure, that's one core principle. Data collection, understanding your zones, heart rate or power, okay, and understanding them, keeping them, tracking them, that's one core principle. And then the discipline to understand those first 2 core principles. Even if you're not a racer, even if you just want to go out and enjoy the ride a little bit more and be more efficient, I think we all want that. Understanding your zones and understanding how to kind of build and stair step through your program. You know, even if it's like, hey, we're gonna have a group ride. There's one group ride we always go to at the end of October. Well, if you start to periodize your program, even if it's super simple, and just slowly build up your fitness to that October ride, and then stare at your data, heart rate or power, and know, you know, what that is, what you're doing, and try to have the discipline to stay within those zones. Especially like if you're on a group ride and a bunch of guys smash up the hill and you're doing what you know is going to be the best power or time in a heart rate zone you've ever done, don't try to stay with them. Do the best you can do that you know you can do. And if you have the discipline, you've been tracking all these numbers, you'll know it. It becomes so clear to you. Hey, so training smart requires tools. I get it, okay? It requires either a power meter or a heart rate and a nice bike computer. I can't give away a power meter because that's really expensive, but I can give away a heart rate and your choice of either the Bolt or the Element from Wahoo. These computers are unreal, bro. The data dump they give you at the end of the ride when they show you everything that you've done, the zones you're in. There's a sweet program in here where if you're with Training Peaks that you can load in your workouts. There's already workouts preloaded from like Sky. This absolutely, with the heart rate and power, it'd be sick if you had power, but if you had at least the heart rate, you could, you'll revolutionize your training program. You'll get way better gains. So I'm gonna give this away, right? One person is gonna get a heart rate and your choice of the Bolt or the Element. This is what I want. And I'm sorry if this is not fair if you don't have the ability to do this, but this is what I'm asking for. A before and after picture of what you look like or are now and what you'll be after smart training with the Wahoo stuff. It doesn't have to be all sponsored by Wahoo, but it does like a split, before and after. What are you before training with data and structure and discipline, and what are you after? Make it funny, make it outrageous, make it crazy. Post it on Instagram and tag me, hashtag train smart, bruh. Hashtag train smart, bruh. Get it? Hashtag train smart, bruh. Okay? Get that on Facebook. You can send it to me, direct message, or you can send it on Instagram, Facebook, however you want to get it to me, and one person's gonna get a heart rate and your choice of one of the computers. If you're looking for a power meter, I highly suggest the P1 pedals, but there's tons on the market. PowerTap also has like a wheel that's like, I think the hub's like only 300 bucks or something like that. But for me, what I use power meter wise are the P1 pedals. They're phenomenal. And if you're looking for a coach, my coach from ATP Coaching, Tony Wolf, dude, it's kind of expensive per month, you know what I mean? So you really gotta be focused on training. Dude, he'll dial your whole structure in and he'll keep you disciplined. So there you go. Let me see those photos of what you look like now and what you're gonna look like after you train smart, bruh. As always, Vegan Cyclist. Yeah.